Good evening and welcome into Sports Talk on a Budget. It is Wednesday, December 11th, year of our Lord 2024. Of course, December, last month of the year, getting down to 2025. Can't believe we've gotten this far. But before I go ahead and dive into the show, just want to mention, as always, if you like this show, please like and subscribe right down here on the YouTube channel if you prefer the video version. If you prefer the audio version, you can find this show on a podcast version on places like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or basically wherever you get your podcasts. Let's go ahead and look at our show today because we have some breaking news that happened about an hour and a half ago, about 2 hours ago in college football relating to an NFL figure for just decades, basically. So that's something I want to talk about. But let's go ahead and look at the show. So first one, so this is going to be mostly college football, but I will end the show with my Week 15 NFL picks. But the first topic I want to look at, so I wanted to take some time and have kind of all the other reactions and all the other kind of complaints and everything about the college football playoff final rankings before I reacted to it. So I will give my reaction and talk about the format and and kind of give a little bit of a look ahead to some of the games that we'll see as well. And then my second topic of the day is the breaking news that happened about an hour and a half ago, and that is Bill Belichick becoming the head coach at the University of North Carolina. So he will be the Tar Heels football coach. Never thought I would see Bill Belichick coaching college, so I'll dive into that. And then I will end my show as I always do. No college picks this week. We only have really one game this weekend, and that's the Army-Navy game. There is a bowl game Saturday night as well, but not going to be picking that game or the bowl game. But I will give you my Week 15 NFL picks, my top 5 picks in the NFL for this weekend, picking some of the top games going into the weekend. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the show. So as I talked about, I wanted to get into the college football playoff final rankings before I get to the breaking news of the day and kind of react to what I saw on Sunday in college football selection Sunday, basically what they have like college basketball does. So first thing I believe is that the committee got it right choosing SMU over Alabama. Yes, I know Alabama had a tougher strength of schedule, plays in a tougher conference, and technically a tougher strength of record and technically better wins, but they also have 2 really, really bad losses. On the road at Vanderbilt, I know Vanderbilt was improved this year, but they still are a 6-6 team in Bama. You can't be losing at Vanderbilt. And then the worst loss Bama had was on the road. I think it was second to last week of the season for them, our second to last game for them at Oklahoma, a bad Oklahoma team, a 6-6 Oklahoma team. You can argue maybe the worst Oklahoma team of this century, maybe even further back. This is one of the worst iterations Oklahoma has ever had at a 6-6 team there. And they don't just beat Bama, but they beat Bama by 21 and got a couple pick sixes and really just put it on Bama, and their defense really owned Bama in that game. But the reason that I liked SMU went undefeated in the ACC, which is still a Power 4 conference, even though some people might think that and not think that's the case. Still a Power 4 conference, went undefeated in the regular season in the ACC. And then in the conference title game against Clemson, playing the game in Charlotte, so this is basically a home game for Clemson. They get down a couple of touchdowns a couple of times, claw all the way back, tie up the game, and end up losing on a last-second 56-yard field goal. Now, 56-yard field goals might be easy-ish in the NFL. In college football, that is not an easy kick, and that's really not an easy kick in the NFL, if we're going to be honest. But still, losing in that fashion, I think, really helped SMU. If they would have stayed 2 touchdowns back and maybe lost by 14, 17, or even 21 points, Bama probably gets the nod. But the way that they were able to claw their way back into the game, come back, tie up the game, and lose at that last-second field goal, I really thought was the reason that SMU got into the field. But let's be honest. The people complaining right now are obviously Alabama fans, and they're SEC fans and SEC kind of homers, and the SEC mouthpieces you see all over every single college football station, basically, whether it's ESPN, CBS can do this sometimes, even on some of the podcasts I see online. And a lot of them are complaining, but not too much. At least we don't have much complaining. But when it comes to the SEC was never going to be happy with any result that came out on Sunday. They were not going to be happy. I think it was, 3-4 weeks ago, they were arguing that they should have 5, maybe 6 teams in the field, so that'd be half the field to be SEC teams. Now they get 3 teams. They only really had 3 deserving teams in my mind because their other teams had major flaws and bad losses. So you don't really get to argue when you have 3 losses, and a couple of them are to either bad teams that are 500 or below 500 or big spreads. So there was no pleasing the SEC. There was no pleasing Greg Sankey. The SEC, yes, they are the best conference in the country, but the gap is not that wide. It's really not that wide. The Big Ten was better at the top, I believe, with their top 4 teams versus the SEC's top 4 teams. So, like I said, there was never going to be any pleasing the SEC, and that's not what this playoff is there for, is to please and to placate to the SEC. As much as ESPN and the people that are on ESPN would like that to happen, because all they do is placate and give out SEC bias every other night when they're talking about college football, that's not what this playoff was for. You only had 3 teams that really deserved to get in the field, and that's all you got. So just be happy with what you got. Next year, if you have 5 teams that deserve it, you probably will get 5 teams in. But this year, you didn't have 5 teams, and you didn't even have 4. But wanted to look at the format of this college football playoff. So first thing that I didn't really care for, and I kind of said this when it first came out, the structure of this college football playoff was I didn't like the auto bid buys. I don't really love auto bids for conference championships, but I understand that to kind of keep the value of the conference championship game what it is. The auto bids are there. But I don't love giving them automatic buys. I think the buys should go to the 4 best teams. 4 best teams in the country should have buys regardless of conference affiliation. That's how it should be. If you want to give out conference champions auto bids into the field, sure, I'm okay with that. I don't love it, but I'm okay with that. But they shouldn't be getting buys, and they shouldn't be ranked as the top 4 seeds. And then if you look at it, so what the NFL does when they rank, when they have their playoffs, they have a 1 through 7 on both sides in the AFC and NFC. But after the first round, they reseed the teams. So if the 6 seed beats the 3 seed, the 6 seed goes on the road to play the 1 seed. If the 5 seed beats the 4 seed, but the 6 seed also won, the 5 seed goes and plays the 2 seed. So you reseed at round after round in the NFL. That's not happening in college football. College football is basically doing a bracket just like college basketball, but different in college basketball when there's 64 teams that are actually in the field versus 12. So you look at a path like Oregon. Oregon gets to play the winner of Tennessee and Ohio State, probably the 2 best teams that are playing on this opening weekend. So that's not great. Where Penn State gets SMU at home, not a walkover because I think SMU is a good team, but that's huge home field advantage. It'll be cold. Team from Dallas, Texas. They're favored, I think, by like I think it's 8.5 right now. We'll get into those picks next week when I break down the college football playoff in totality, and the first round matchups next week. But after that, they would be able to play Boise State on a neutral site, not going to Boise. And I like Boise State and I like Ashton Genty a lot, but they're probably not one of the 4 best teams in the field right now. So Penn State would get to go and play Boise State, I believe, in the Fiesta Bowl. Obviously closer to Boise State, but the Penn State fans will travel, and they'll get a lot of fans down there to the game in Tempe, Arizona. So just an observation there. Oregon can kind of screwed with Oregon's the only undefeated team left in Division I college football. Only undefeated team left. They won their conference. They've been the number 1 seed. They've been the number 1 team in every single iteration of the college football playoff, and yet they're rewarded with that path. Now, if it were to play out that way in a reseeding model, that's fine. If it just went chalk, those would be the teams that they would play. But if it doesn't go chalk and say Clemson pulls off an upset, Clemson should have to go and play Oregon. Or if Indiana pulls off an upset over Notre Dame should have to go and play Oregon, not just playing the 8 or 9 seed. So don't like that format there. Don't love the auto bids or the buys, but the rumor is this thing's going to expand again, and it's probably going to happen not after. So this current college football playoff is a 2-year contract. So that's this year and next year. After that, the talk is that it's going to expand to 4 teams. And the talk is right now that the SEC is not happy, and they're going to align with the Big 12, and they're probably going to ask for at least 3 or 4 automatic bids a piece for their conferences. Would not love that, but I could totally see that happening because the SEC and the Big 10 are the big power brokers in college football, and they pretty much run everything. But just want to kind of look at the matchups real quick. I thought we got some really good matchups. Your 8-9 matchup, Tennessee at Ohio State. I think that's going to be a really good game. I'll break that down next week. Indiana at Notre Dame. You got the Battle of Indiana. That's the 10-7 matchup. I like that matchup as well. Your 5-12 matchup is Clemson at Texas. That's a nice matchup there as well. Clemson is playing better of late, and Texas kind of sputtered in the SEC championship game. It did not look very good in that game. And then the final one will be SMU on the road at Penn State, and I believe Penn State was the 6th seed in that. So it's a 6-11 matchup. That I think is a sneaky good game too. SMU, I know a lot of people were like kind of scoffing at their schedule. They're a good team. Rhett Lashley is a good coach. Kevin Jennings is an above average quarterback and can make plays with his legs and his arm as well. So I think that'll be a good game. I will do my full college football playoff first round breakdown next week before the games happen on Friday and Saturday. So can't wait to do that. That'll be fun. But let's go ahead and dive to the biggest news of the day and the biggest news in college football as well. And that is former New England Patriots head coach Bill Belichick being hired by the North Carolina Tar Heels to be their next head football coach. Now, this had been talked about all the way up until last week. I want to say this news started breaking on like last Thursday and Friday. At first, I was like, okay, well, maybe he's just, kind of putting some feelers out there. They reached out to him. He's like, hey, why not take a meeting? Wasn't exactly taking it seriously. And then as it went on, he had more meetings. He had a 5-hour meeting with them in New York or something like that with the power brokers at North Carolina. So it became like as the week went on last week and the week came on this week, it became more and more apparent that this is more than just kind of a ploy. There's something there. There's interest on both sides from Bill Belichick and the University of North Carolina, and there's real steam that this could happen. And today it finally went down. Yesterday it was kind of agreed to in principle. Bill Belichick was waiting on North Carolina to kind of approve his demands, so to speak. He actually gave them a 400-page Bible or manifesto, is what they're calling it, of the demands and needs and things he wants done if he was to be the coach. I'm guessing they approved that or they accepted that because he is the coach of North Carolina. Want to break down why I think Bill Belichick decided to take this opportunity. Now, Bill Belichick is 72 years old. He's an old coach. He would have been an old coach in the NFL. He's an old coach in college football. He's actually never coached at all, not even in like a GA role or like a position coach role ever in the college football ranks. But his dad coached at Navy a lot, and his dad actually was a position coach at the University of North Carolina all the way back in like the 60s and 70s. So he's familiar with the program, a little bit at least. He's familiar with the program. And Bill Belichick seems like a guy that probably keeps in touch with a lot of these things. So there was that there. But the reason why I thought that he was interested is because NFL wasn't a guarantee. There was no guarantee that Bill Belichick was going to get hired by an NFL team who had an opening this offseason. We saw what happened last year. He only got one interview by the Atlanta Falcons, and they didn't hire him. They went with Raheem Morris, maybe a little buyers of Morris, as we see Atlanta's kind of sputtering down the stretch here, but that kind of remains to be seen a little bit. But there wasn't a ton of interest last year for Bill Belichick. And what Bill Belichick is looking for, because this is what he had in New England, he wants to run it all. He wants to be the head coach, and he wants to be in charge of personnel, so drafting, free agency, things like that. No NFL team, in my opinion, or I don't believe, was going to give him full control that way, because he showed at the end in New England that his drafting and his GM ability kind of started to wane a little bit. It was good in the middle there, but towards the end it was not great. And no team was just going to hand you the keys to everything. They would have to get rid of their GM. Obviously, they already got rid of their head coach, maybe even the president of football operations, and maybe a few scouts. So no team is really going to just do that. The Patriots were willing to do that because he already had proof of concept. He was winning and was proving to be a winner before they gave him that title. They didn't give him that title from go. They did not. I apologize for that. But that was not going to be an option or an opportunity that Bill Belichick was going to be afforded to again by another NFL team. But he can do that in college. And college football is not your daddy's. It's not even your older brother's college football. This is a whole new landscape. With NIL and the transfer portal, NIL is basically contracts and getting contracts for players and negotiating contracts for players. And the transfer portal is basically free agency in college football. Now, and the NFL has a lot better structure for their contracts and for their free agency. But college football is on their way there. There's supposed to be revenue sharing probably happening before the next college football season. That'll give it more structure, and I assume that the NIL and transfer portal structure will at some point be better and not this just kind of wild west on both ends, for both on NIL and transfer portal. But like I said, now that college football has become a lot closer to the professional model than it has been in its entire history. And not only that, when you're the head coach at a major university in college football, you run the show. I know you answer to an athletic director and a president of the school, but you run the show. You're the face of the program, just like Nick Saban was the face of Alabama forever. Urban Meyer was the face of Florida and Ohio State. Kirby Smart's the face of Georgia. Bill Belichick will be the face of North Carolina football, and he will have the last say on basically everything. Whatever he says goes, whether it's in NIL, it's in transfer portal, it's in high school recruiting. He's going to be able to control who he wants on his roster for the most part and how much they're getting paid for the most part. And there was reports today that North Carolina's NIL budget before this hire was about $4 million. And that is on the low end of Power 4 football right now. That is on the low end. The report says that they're going to move that budget from $4 million to $20 million, which automatically takes them to the top end of Power 4 football and makes them a lot more competitive. So that is a huge plus for Bill Belichick in this hiring here. There's also reports that Steve Belichick is going to be coming over with Bill Belichick, probably be the defensive coordinator. There was reports that he would be like the coach in waiting. That hasn't been confirmed by a lot of places, so we'll see how that comes down. But just to look at this overall hire, obviously I think this is a good hire for North Carolina. Mac Brown, I know Mac Brown's only a year older than Bill Belichick, but Mac Brown, it seemed that he wasn't down with this new age of college football and he wasn't ready to adapt, and he kind of it passed him by. And Bill Belichick, as you've been seeing from his multiple media interviews that he has, multiple shows that he's doing, he kind of has this new energy. He's dating a 24-year-old, so there's that kind of energy too. But he has this kind of new energy. He's a football guy, probably more than any football guy in the fucking world, in my opinion. So he's a guy that was born to coach, and this is what he wants to do. Doesn't matter if it's the Pee-wee level, high school, college, NFL, XFL, wherever. He was born to coach, and that's what he wants to do. So I think that's a good hire there. And I think what this is going to do for recruits looking to go to North Carolina. And when you're a high-level recruit at a high school, obviously you want to go and compete for championships at any school that you choose, but you also want to have the opportunity to get developed and maybe even one day end up in the NFL. And why would you not want to go to the coach who dominated the NFL for over for 20 years? And a guy who knows the NFL inside and out, knows what the NFL GMs are looking for, what teams are looking for, what kind of players they're looking for, what kind of skill sets they're looking for. Bill Belichick's going to know that inside and out. So that's going to be a leg up for him when he's going to talk to recruits. He's like, hey, you want to get to the next level? Follow me. I can tell you exactly what it takes to get to the next level. That's going to be a huge feather in his cap there. And like I said, I feel like Bill Belichick's got this newfound energy. Maybe it's a little bit of disdain for the Crafts after they fired him and just kind of a little bit anger there. But he's got this newfound energy. It's only a 3-year contract worth $30 million, so $10 million a year. Wasn't really about the money. Bill Belichick's got plenty of money. But only a 3-year deal, and then we'll see if he wants to stick around after that. He'd be like 75, 76 at that point by the time the 2029 season would start, or 2028 season would start. So still, but just going back to why I think this is a good fit. Bill Belichick is a guy, he wants the control. He wants to have his hands. He wants to have his hands in all the cookie jars and everything that's going on. He is going to have that. Obviously, he's going to have that on the field with on-field schematics. He's going to have that in the NIL distribution. He's going to have that in the recruiting, both high school and transfer portal recruiting. And he's going to have that in other big decision-making stuff at North Carolina. And North Carolina, I'm a huge North Carolina basketball fan. And that's what North Carolina athletics is known for, is their basketball. Dean Smith, Roy Williams, players like Michael Jordan, James Worthy, Rasheed Wallace, Jamal Mashburn, Tyler Hansbrough. The list goes on and on. They've got tons of great players in college basketball. They have tons of championships, whether it be conference championships, Final Four appearances, and national championships. But the football program has never exactly been great. Now, they've had some great players there. Julius Peppers, Lawrence Taylor, Drake May was a great player for them a couple years ago as well. So they've had some really good players. They've never been able to put a consistent, good product on the field for college football. They're going to get the attention. They're going to draw a lot of attention from recruits. This has the opportunity to I think, succeed. I don't know if it will succeed. My guess, I think it will, just because the expertise that Bill Belichick brings in there, the fact that he can tell recruits, if you want to get to the NFL and get to the next level, I can get you there because I know exactly what it takes to get there and what these coaches and GMs at the NFL level are looking for. So I think that'll really help him there. 3-year deal. I don't know. Like I said, the reports are unconfirmed right now that Steve Belichick is the coach in waiting. I don't know if I'd love that from a North Carolina standpoint, but we'll see how he does. Probably be the defensive coordinator for North Carolina. But either way, shocker of the offseason for college football. Well, it's not technically the offseason, but shocker of the postseason, there we go, for college football and the hiring and coaching carousel. Bill Belichick is the new head coach at the University of North Carolina. I think it's a slam dunk hire. I think he can definitely work. There will be some things that he's going to have to learn, never coaching at the college level. But like I said, the college game is closer to the pro game than it ever has been, and he'll be able to use his expertise that he had getting success in the pro game to the college game. And as there becomes more structure with revenue sharing, I believe there will be more transfer portal and an NIL structure going forward at some point. That'll even help him bolster him even more. So I think it's a slam dunk hire, but definitely a shockwave, I believe, in college football. I never thought I would be talking about Bill Belichick as a college football coach. But either way, can't wait. They open their season next year at home against TCU. So that's a pretty good matchup regardless. There'll be a ton of eyes there to see. And the ACC, as we saw this past year, is pretty wide open. Clemson won the conference with 3 losses. Miami was probably the best team in the conference for most of the year, but was a really flawed team. And then SMU ends up being the runner-up in the conference too. Good team, but can they continue that on a year-to-year basis? If Bill Belichick can hit the ground running in North Carolina and get the guys in that he needs to and start working the transfer portal and start working the NIL game and start working his schematics and scheme with the players there as well, he can have this team contending for a conference championship, which would also mean a playoff berth pretty quickly. So, like I said, slam dunk hire for North Carolina. Good opportunity for Bill Belichick. I think this could be a match made in heaven. We'll see if he can adapt to the college game. Obviously, a lot of different things there, but like I said, college is more like the pros more than ever has been. So I think that bodes well for Bill Belichick at this time. So let's go ahead and finish off my show here. I'm going to move to the NFL to finish off the show. I'm going to give you my top 5 picks for the weekend. It is week 15 in the NFL, so we're getting to the home stretch in the NFL as well. Some teams, some big games this weekend. This is actually a really good weekend for NFL games. Good for them. First weekend without college football. They crush it with their schedule. So we're going to start with the Thursday night game, and that is the Rams at the 49ers, and the Rams are currently a 2.5-point favorite in this game. Now, both these teams are coming off of big wins last week. Now, big margin for the 49ers, but they played a Chicago Bears team that looked to have quit on the season already. So they get a big win there. They were in control the entire game and dominated that game. They're currently a 2.5-point favorite at home. And the Rams probably got the best win of the weekend at home last weekend against the Buffalo Bills, 44-42. What a great game there that was. Puka Nacua was great. Cooper Kupp was great. Matthew Stafford was great. When those three are out there and playing well, the Rams are one of the most dangerous teams, not just in the NFC, but maybe in the entire NFL. So I think they're humming. Now, the 49ers have owned the Rams in years. Kyle Shanahan has owned Sean McVay in the last 4 to 5 years as well. This isn't the same 49ers team. I know what they did last week, and I think that was a little bit of a mirage because I really do think that Chicago team has kind of quit on the season. So I don't take a lot of stock from that game against Chicago last week at home. Some dissension there a little bit too. You hear Deebo Samuel complaining about his targets and his touches. That's not great. Still some injuries and some tragedies that have happened for the 49ers that have really kind of slowed down their season. I think the Rams could win outright, and I think they definitely cover. So give me the Rams plus 2.5, and I actually like Rams money line to win the game as well. And then maybe one of the best games of the year on Sunday, we have the Buffalo Bills at the Detroit Lions, and the Detroit Lions are a 2.5-point favorite in this game. This is a great game. Was Buffalo maybe looking ahead to this game last week, and that's what happened to them against the Rams in LA last week? Maybe. But hopefully, because what I saw from the Buffalo Bills run defense really gives me cause to pause about them, because if your run defense is going to play like that against the best rushing attack in the NFL in Detroit with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, they're going to just gash you, and they're going to play keep away. They're going to run the ball down your throat, and they're going to win that way. Now, the Lions still have a ton of injuries on the defensive side. Injuries are starting to stack up on both sides for Buffalo as well. So a little bit of injury depleted teams here. You have probably the MVP in this game in Josh Allen. He's playing outside of his mind right now. Had 6 total touchdowns last week against the Rams, but still wasn't enough to get the victory. And this Lions team on offense is just clicking on all cylinders. Like I said, with that rushing attack, it gives Montgomery. They're hard to stop. Then you still have St. Brown and Jameson Williams and Sam Laporta receiving. And Jared Goff, when they're able to protect him and he's upright, he can slice and dice any defense in the league. It's in Detroit, underrated environment there. That's one of the toughest places to play from what I've heard. I think Detroit wins and covers. Don't love what I saw out of the Bills' defense last week. Think that may continue a little bit. So give me the Lions minus 2.5 in this game. And then we have the Buccaneers at the Chargers in a sneaky good game of two teams that are currently in the playoffs as of right now. The Bucs took the lead in the NFC South during this just debacle, what is the Falcons season at this point. Chargers are a 3-point favorite. This game is going to be played in LA. Chargers are coming off that heartbreaking loss. It seems like every team that plays the Kansas City Chiefs has a heartbreaking loss, as the Kansas City Chiefs find some way to get another victory. Chargers are coming off that heartbreaking loss where they lost at the buzzer on a doink field goal that went in for Kansas City. Chargers are a team, they're very limited offensively. They don't have great weapons on the outside. Lamb McConkey's their top wide receiver. Quentin Johnson had a pretty good game against Kansas City. Their running game's just okay. J.K. Dobbins is probably still going to be out, so it'll be Gus Edwards and Kamani Vidal. They're okay. Their offensive line is good. Where they hang their hat on is their defense, and they can get after the quarterback. I think that's their advantage in this game. I think they get after Baker. Baker has been turning the ball over more lately. You get after Baker, you make him a little more uncomfortable. He's going to turn over the ball more. That's why I like the Chargers to win and cover in this game. So give me the Chargers -3 to win and cover in this game. And then we have the Battle of Pennsylvania, and that is the Steelers at the Eagles, and the Eagles are currently a 5-point favorite in this game. Now, the Eagles, we talk about dissension and a little bit of turmoil in San Francisco with their wide receiver situation. The Eagles will raise you that with what's going on with A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. A.J. Brown, after the game on Sunday, their win against Carolina, he's complaining that he hasn't got enough touches, didn't get his first target until late in the second quarter. Then Brandon Graham goes on a radio station a couple days later and talks about, they just don't seem to be close anymore. They don't seem to be as friendly as they were before. He's talking about Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. Just a lot of dissension coming from a team that has won 9 straight games. This is not something you want when you're a team that has the capacity to win a Super Bowl, because this team does have the capacity to win a Super Bowl with what they have on the offense and what they're developing on the defensive end. So I don't love that dissension there. You look at the other side with the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a team that keeps on just winning games the old Pittsburgh Steelers way. They're going to play good defense. They're going to run the football. And Russell Wilson is more than capable of making throws when they need him to. He had a good game last week. When George Pickens is there, they really connect well as well. And that defensive front for the Pittsburgh Steelers with guys like T.J. Watt and Cameron Hayward, they're going to get after you, and they're going to make the quarterback uncomfortable. If they can slow down Saquon Barkley, that's the key to the game. If you put the game in Jalen Hurts' hands to throw the football, you probably will beat them if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they put their efforts into slowing down Saquon Barkley, make Jalen Hurts beat them. He doesn't. So give me the Steelers +5, and I actually think the Steelers could win this game outright as well. A lot of Steelers fans will be there in Philadelphia, I think, as well. And then we'll finish out with the game. I believe this is a Sunday night game or maybe a Sunday afternoon game. But either way, we have the Packers at the Seahawks, and the Packers are currently a 3-point favorite in this game. Now, the Seahawks are quietly having a really good season. They have a 2-game lead in the division right now in front of both the Rams and the Cardinals and even the 49ers. They're all kind of jumbled together in the 2 seed and 3 seeds there. And they're back at home. Geno Smith had a really good game last week. DK Metcalf seems to be getting healthier. If they can get Kenneth Walker back, that would be great. But Zach Charbonnet had a great game. And Jackson Smith and Jigba is having a really good season for them as well. And their defense under new head coach / defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald continues to get better week after week and really kind of put it to Kyler Murray last week, turned him over a couple of times, kind of rattled him. That was the difference in that game. The Packers had a really good showing last Thursday night against Detroit, lost on that last-second field goal by Jake Bates for Detroit. This Packers team, though, they seem to kind of start out slow sometimes, and Jordan Love has kind of been a little sporadic throughout the season. He's not having a great year, not exactly having the year we thought he would have after the way he finished last year. What they can lean on is Josh Jacobs, and they need to lean on him early and often because he is the kind of the straw that stirs the drink for the team. I think this is going to be a close game. It's in Seattle. Of course, it's a tough place to play. I think the Seahawks cover, and I think there's an outside shot that the Seahawks would win the game as well. So give me the Seahawks +3 to cover, and maybe even Seahawks money line might be a good play there as well to maybe even win the game outright. So that has been my show for today. Of course, this is Sports Talk on a Budget. My name is Kody Dodier. I will be your host as always. If you like the video version, please like and subscribe right down here on YouTube. Leave a comment with some of your picks, some of your reactions to Bill Belichick and other things like that as well. If you prefer the audio version, you can find this podcast under Sports Talk on a Budget on places like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. Thank you again for watching and always listening, and have a great day.